We are trying to troubleshoot all of those future issues, headaches, so that they don't become something larger. In the future, we didn't know that how greatly it could affect us, right? All of this is very proactive instead of reactive. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Adventures of a Real Estate Investor. I'm Susie.
And I'm Michael, and we're excited you joined us on this adventure. Because today we're going to talk about something that a lot of people don't necessarily talk about that often, or they forget or forego, right? There's a lot of properties out there that have a lot of deferred maintenance. And why do they have deferred maintenance? Two things. One, they don't do preventative maintenance. And two, they don't have enough capital to do, even if they did preventative maintenance, to actually fix the things they need to fix, right?
Yeah, because when you go into buying an asset and you're underwriting because you visited and you're like, okay, these are the things that need to get done in order to have that value add component. Sometimes, and by sometimes, I mean a lot of times, the owner who is selling will hide a lot of the deferred maintenance. And we say this from experience that we have found. Yes, we have learned to look deeper now at all the properties that we view, but still there's just some things that happen that you can't see. They just happen with time.
Yeah, like you can't really account for certain things because you didn't know. For example, you didn't know how long water intrusion was happening in this one location, right? You might be able to locate where water intrusion was occurring, but it could have been sitting there for 10 years. And then finally a soffit falls out, the soffit looks great, but it just falls out, right? So
so we're excited to talk about preventative maintenance day.
Yeah.
Also from a LP standpoint and a GP standpoint, what you can look for and like limited partners, if you do decide you want to passively invest, that's just something I would ask the operator, right? Like how often are you doing preventative maintenance at all your properties? Or what is your plan for them? Does a property manager ever do them? All of the above.
Exactly. And if you're interviewing a property management company, that's also a good thing to look into. Hey, what's your preventative maintenance plan? How often do you do it? They should have some kind of template to begin with, right? For interior and exterior preventative maintenance, and whether that's performed monthly or quarterly. And if they don't, that's probably a flag. So anyways, without further ado, Susie and I are going to dive into the preventative maintenance plans that we have for our properties and get into what quarterly preventative maintenance stuff we do, what monthly preventative maintenance stuff we do, whether it's interior, exterior as well. But I will say from the very beginning, our property management company who manages all of our assets, they have quarterly preventative maintenance and also some monthly ones. Now, is that the only thing that they do? It is a generalized template of things that they do across all their properties. However, when Susie and I take over a property, what we do is go in and look at, okay, what are things specific to this property that won't be captured on the generalized preventative maintenance plan? And we'll go over those here shortly. Before we get into the details of what our exterior and exterior preventative maintenance plans go into, we're going to first define what preventative maintenance is. So preventative maintenance is basically going around taking a survey of the interior and the exterior of the property, and then basically making a list of things that need to be fixed, right? So you can nip things in the bud before they become issues, right? So for example, you have brick on the outside, right? And you see that some of the brick has cracks in it, those cracks in the mason. So those cracks could eventually lead to water intrusion, and water intrusion could actually lead to water damage on the interior, right? Which then could become this huge problem costing thousands and thousands of dollars. But if you could catch that in your preventative maintenance plan, guess what? You can either seal up that crack and you can prevent any kind of water intrusion from occurring.
I think that like an easier way to even break that down too is when a maintenance issue happens, it's a reactive problem. Like it's something that has to be fixed because it has caused discomfort to the building, to the resident, whatnot. But with preventative maintenance, we are trying to troubleshoot all of those future issues, headaches, whatever word you'd like to use, so that they don't become something larger. It's something that nobody noticed that we even fixed because the resident didn't know that it could affect them in the future. We didn't know that how greatly it could affect us, right? All of this is very proactive instead of reactive.
Absolutely. Love that for sure. All right. So the purpose of preventative maintenance as well is to really save on cost in the long run, right? You own a multifamily property or you own some kind of real estate, right? There's going to be maintenance issues.
Yeah, because this can be single family, commercial, RV parks. This literally can go for anything. It could go for your life. Be preventative.
Exactly. So I mean, buildings in general tend to deteriorate over time, no matter what they're made of, right? And so preventive maintenance is there to help save you cost in the long run, right? Like I mentioned that example as well, right? Sealing up brick could cost, $20 at most, right? Somebody's time and a little bit of polyurethane or something like that. And then, or while, if you let that go on for a long period of time, that could end up costing thousands and thousands of dollars down the road and potentially losing a resident at the same time, right? If they're having water intrusion issues inside their unit, they could get upset and then end up leaving. So it's just very, very important to continue to perform preventative maintenance regularly so you can preserve the value of your property and extend its lifespan. All right, so now let's get into our interior preventative maintenance plans. I'm gonna let Susie take this and explain what interior preventative maintenance is and what it entails.
Cool. So I have done this at our properties. I've done it with the property managers just because what I think could be an issue is something that the on-site manager might not think is, or we just might have different opinions on what bad is in an apartment, or what is something that could be fixed. So the main things that we look at are underneath the faucets, we are looking for leaks because 9 out of 10 times a resident is not going to put in a work order for a leak. We always find leaks, even if it's just one. And so that's something we make sure to do with the faucets and the toilets. Another thing is that we check the smoke and the fire alarms to make sure that if a fire does occur, they all work. This is also something we've experienced in the past where we've had a fire at a property. So this is very important.
I want to interject real quick too. Is a lot of times you'll find residents will actually take the batteries out of the smoke detectors because they're cooking often and stuff like that. And they're just tired of hearing the smoke alarm going off, right?
Yeah.
So that's actually a lease violation if they do that and they don't put it back in, right? So we find that, which we find quite often where the residents do that, we want to make sure that those are put back in. The lease violation is given and written up and then it's prevented in the future.
Another thing that we check is the blinds, right? Because when new residents or future residents, as we hope to call them, come and walk the property, we want everybody's blinds looking nice. We don't want them broken from pets. We don't want any of that. Yes, that's something that the maintenance guy could see every single day. But because the maintenance man or woman has a schedule for the day, we don't want them worrying about that. So this is something that we worry about within our monthly and quarterly preventative maintenance, just to make sure the blinds look good. Another thing that we check is for pets. We have a lot of unauthorized pets. And I have also learned that everybody thinks they are a really great pet owner and that they are super clean. You could be the most clean person and you could be a really great pet owner, but that one day your cat decides to tear up the carpet in the middle of the night. That's just something that we want to keep on and it's additional income for the property. And so it's always a win-win just checking it and seeing if there are pets in the apartment. Another thing, depending if the property has mini splits or not, really cleaning the lines / hoses so that we can make sure the residents aren't putting in maintenance requests just to have those cleaned, right? If we are cleaning them on a regular basis, there should never be a problem with them when they are on. But then last but not least, something that we check is just the overall condition of the apartment and almost do a housekeeping check. When people move in, their apartment is looking great and wonderful. Literally within a month, it can be trashed because they don't clean very often because of their pets. And so this really gives you a pulse on wow, this unit was brand new when somebody moved in and now everything's going to have to be replaced. So you can really get even a pulse on the condition of every apartment. But even in their lease, right? There is a housekeeping clause. Residents have to keep their house clean, not just for themselves, but because of the pests, right? When pests enter an apartment, whether that is cockroaches or fleas or whatever kind of nasty bug, those ripple into other apartments that are connected to them. So we're not just doing it for the resident, we're also doing it for the neighbors because the neighbors who are a little bit cleaner do deserve that as well. And I mean, when we are doing this, the residents see that we care about the property and that we care about them. And so it really helps with resident satisfaction and retention, right? Well-maintained properties lead to higher resident satisfaction and retention rates. And again, you want residents to renew their leases so that you aren't doing turnover as often because turnover is really expensive. Also, it gives the resident kind of the opportunity to share their thoughts if they wish on things that could be done to the property. That's something that we ask every time, hey, if there was an amenity that you would like to be seen, what would it be? Or if there's something you would change about the property, what would it be? And it really gives them the opportunity to know that we value their opinion and that's something that they want, right? They get more face time with the on-site property manager as well. And so when it does come to having difficult conversations, they're more inclined to be able to do it because they actually feel like they have some sort of warm relationship already established. It's not just cold every single time, like I only have to come to you to pay rent, which is also fine if that's what they prefer. But we really want to create a community. And so more face time helps create that community.
Absolutely. So we'll get into some case studies here at the end. So we have some pretty funny stories about preventative maintenance as well.
Funny / awful.
Funny, haha, not funny, serious, not funny, haha. Anyways, in addition to interior preventative maintenance, which we do quarterly, we're scheduled an entire week with the on-site and the maintenance guy. Basically, they go around and they look at every single unit during that week, and then they put in work orders for things to get fixed, right? It's surprisingly how many leaks, as Susie mentioned, leaks for faucets, leaks for, just running toilets and things like that we find and fix. We can just nip things in the bud and prevent any kind of increase.
Just to add one more thing. So some people listening to this might be like, man, though, what if like 90 work orders come out of that? Like we don't have the work orders completed when we're there. That's not something we're trying to do. We are trying to get the preventative maintenance completed so that it feels like this can be a short task. Yes, there's things that came out of it, but hopefully as time goes on, you have less work orders that come from the preventative maintenance after takeover because people are getting in the habit of putting in those small leaks, putting in anything when it does come to their apartment.
Yep. Absolutely. So that's all interior stuff. Let's move to the exterior, which is my favorite thing. I really like to spend a lot of time on the exterior of the property and kind of walking around looking for potential issues in the future, right? And so as I mentioned at the beginning as well, when we take over a property, Susie and I walk the property and see, okay, what's specific to this property? Does it have pitched roofs? Does it have flat roofs? Does it have brick? Does it have siding?
Mm-hmm.
Does it have concrete landings that need to have attention to them, right? So like all these things that make this property different from all the other properties, right? Yeah, there are some things that are going to be the same. They're all going to have windows, right? They're all going to have sidewalks and everything like that, right? Like, so we find out what's different and we make a list of things that Susie and I want checked for this specific property on a monthly or a quarterly basis, right? And then we provide that to our property manager. She then integrates that into the maintenance quarterly and monthly preventative maintenance as well. And then the foremans or the regional foremans actually make sure that those things are getting taken care of as well, just like quarterly preventative maintenance. So for example, as I mentioned, some of the things we check pitch roofs, we check flat roofs, we check the TPO, make sure it's not coming up, make sure there's no soft spots, things like that on the decking of the TPO. Make sure that the windows are sealed properly. The biggest thing for exterior preventative maintenance is preventing water intrusion, right? As I mentioned, cracks in bricking, which can lead to water intrusion. We look for where the gutters pulling apart potentially and water is running behind the gutters, getting in behind the fascia, things like that. And then we look for, making sure that the siding is sealed at each of the edges and the corners, right? Or any time where there's flashing put on the roof, make sure that's all sealed up properly and this flashing is properly in place. Those are just some ideas. Happy to share our preventative maintenance list with anybody who wants to reach out just to get an idea. But we want to make sure that things are taken care of on the exterior. Not only do I trust the maintenance personnel to do this on some things on a monthly basis, but also some things on a quarterly basis, I will walk the property at least once a quarter every time when I'm out there, making sure that there's no preventative maintenance that needs to be taken care of. I take an entire half day, walk the entire property, and then write down everything that needs to be taken care of, taking pictures of everything, and I put it in a PowerPoint, PDF it, and explain exactly what needs to be done. And then we'll either have the maintenance guy take care of it, or we'll hire it out to a third-party vendor to take care of as well. But the whole point of that is multi-pronged, right? So one of it is not only, Susie mentioned this earlier, but resident satisfaction, right? They can see that you're taking care of the property, making sure that they live in a nice looking property. Number two, mitigating risk. For example, over time, sidewalks settle, right? And which potentially cause tripping hazards, right? So I walk around, check all the sidewalks, and then I spray paint areas that need to be shaved down. And so not only does insurance require it, the lender also requires that, but I also want to make sure that we take care of it too, because we don't want any kind of legal risk there as well. And then you say something?
Yeah, I was just going to add, like, when you enhance the property's reputation through residents and just through like word of mouth of people who drive by, that means a lot too, right? In the area that you are investing in as a general partner or as a limited partner, like you want your property to have a great reputation so that you can attract higher quality residents and then just like positively impact the property's marketability, right? When you go to sell, like people in the area who know you, right? Because although it is like a lot of people are investing, a lot of us still know each other. Like you want to know that you're known as one of the owners who takes care of a property, right? That like people want to buy from you and that residents want to rent from you. And for us, it would more be our property management company, right? That they could follow. But that's something that just speaks volumes. The exterior does need a lot of love so that you can attract the people that you want to attract there.
Absolutely. And so I know this could be a daunting task. This could be a lot of work potentially for a property management company. Well, once these lists are created, then you can kind of apply them across all of your properties. But then, as I mentioned, finding things that are specific to that property only, and then developing plans for those specific properties for interior and exterior. And then once those plans are in place, then really tracking that. And we use a project management software tool known as Asana, which we discussed in the previous episode 122. And so you can go back and listen to that. But basically we have it listed in there as quarterly preventative maintenance or preventative maintenance, right? And then they put in, the property manager will then upload these reports to that specific task. And we can see every quarter how we're doing and how it's going and then what work orders came of it. Hey, is there too many work orders that were created that we need to hire out this to a third party vendor as well to take care of? Or can it be all handled in-house?
Yeah, I mean, and at the beginning, like this might seem like a daunting task to the on-site, but like even what Michael and I have experienced is that like when owners come into town, the property management company wants the property to look amazing, right? So a lot of work is put in like a week or 2 weeks before. But if this is happening throughout the whole entire year, you're not spending a week or two whenever an owner comes in order to have this done. Like your property will just look great, pretty much be like owner ready all of the time, right? That's something that you want to do. So if they go out of their way to make it owner ready, this is something that everyone should do to make it resident ready, right? Like it should look the exact same. In my opinion, I actually think it should look better for the residents because they're the ones who have to move in, not me. But whole different conversation for a whole nother day.
Yeah, so let's talk about some case studies now and some success stories. And so, for example, we were doing preventative maintenance one time at one of our properties. In the quarter time frame from the previous preventative maintenance, our on-site manager found 123 vacuums, I think, that this resident had collected. 123 vacuums that the resident has collected in their apartment. And they hadn't used a single one of those vacuums. This place was disgusting. And so obviously...
They just couldn't vacuum. There was no floor. The floor was covered.
Yeah. It was literally vacuum on vacuum. And they're talking about like old school vacuums too, not like new, Dysons or anything like that. There's old school, with the vertical bag and everything like that attached to the handle and stuff. Very, very strange. Not really sure.
Yeah,
this person just had
like a mental health issues.
But we were able to, then, hey, clean it up, give them a chance. Hey, this is a lease violation, clean up the area. And so the next time we went back in, I think, unfortunately, they did not clean it up and they had to leave due to a lease violation. So fit things like that. Or you can find potentially where, a resident will rip up the carpet and let their dog piss and poop all over the concrete floor. Things like that. True stories, people. True stories. And it's just people are living in this filth. And then you keep calling pest control because there's so many, there could be roaches and stuff like that. And you're like, what is the issue? And then you realize that the unit next door is the one that has piss and poop all over the floor. And so, just preventative maintenance can prevent these issues from occurring in the future, right? So success stories. Yeah, as I mentioned multiple times, finding potential places for water intrusion is probably the biggest success, right? Because water intrusion can lead to wood rot, can lead to mold and, ceilings collapsing, walls collapsing, everything like that, which is everything you want to avoid. So that's always a success when I can find and pinpoint and eliminate a potential water intrusion issue. So before we end the show, we have our fun segment, Multifamily Mythbusters. And so, Susie, I have a myth today. Are you ready?
Yes.
Yeah. So the myth is preventative maintenance is unnecessary in multifamily properties because it's too costly and time consuming.
Gotta bust that myth. So not true. I know I've mentioned this before, right? So it requires an initial investment of time and resources, but neglecting the property can lead to far greater expenses down the road. You really want to identify and address issues before they escalate into major problems, such as things that Michael alluded to, like structural damage, appliance failures, or safety hazards, because that's actually a huge thing too, right? A lot of these problems can turn into safety hazards, and that's something you don't want to put your residents resident in that position at all. So just by regularly inspecting and maintaining key parts of your property, whether it's HVAC systems, plumbing, electrical systems, and common areas, like we definitely can prolong the lifespan of the equipment. And that is what you want, right? Like your equipment is your baby. The equipment is also your asset, right? And so when you can enhance the overall value of the property, that is the goal. So as we mentioned, having regular preventative maintenance increases resident satisfaction, which is the number one thing, because we want less turnover and we want their friends to come live there too, so that you can just have that long-term profitability, right? Like if you can increase your NOI and keep the residents happy all at the same time, that is a win-win, right? So you want to be able to save both money and time in the long run. So always choose preventative maintenance.
100%. So to wrap everything up here, again, as Susie mentioned, preventative maintenance is proactive versus reactive. A lot of times, a lot of asset managers and property managers are reactive and not proactive. So I challenge you to be proactive. I also challenge you as a listener, whether you're LP or GP, ask your operators who you're investing with how often they do preventative maintenance. Yeah. Ask to see their preventative maintenance checklist, for interior and exterior. See how thorough and in-depth it is, right? See what kind of operator they are. If you're a GP, encourage you to build out a preventative maintenance checklist. If you don't have one, build it out with your property management company. Or if you're vertically integrated, build it out yourself. Figure out how to implement that into your business as well. And then overall, preventative maintenance is going to save you money in the long run. Yes, this might be a hard thing to get set up at the beginning, but I promise you it's going to be a fraction of the cost to perform and to execute now than if you wait for things to progress in the future. And it'll make your asset better for selling or disposing of in the future. So again, thank you so much for tuning in to the Adventures of Real Estate Investor podcast. Until next time, explore more, adventure awaits.